Well, these restrictions have been in place since Reconstruction. They've been using this. There's nothing wrong with it, but there is lots of things that are wrong with it. One, we found that Republican governors have closed down DMVs where you need to get your voter ID. Some rural areas, it's difficult to go and purchase one. Voter IDs can be expensive, and it usually disenfranchises the poorest of people, seniors, those that don't have papers like their birth certificates. So Brian Kemp knows that there's studies been done how much voter IDs disenfranchise people. So it's part of the big lie when he says it doesn't really disenfranchise people.
Weren't the Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s meant to stop discrimination at the polls?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
what happened?
Of course. Well, of course, in 2013, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was gutted by our Supreme Court, citing that we had entered a post-racial society because we had elected our first Black president. We no longer needed the protections of the Voting Rights Act. As you can see in America from the violence against Black people, that we still very much need protections against discrimination. So basically what happened was when they gutted the Voting Rights Act, there was no longer federal oversight over states that wanted to implement discriminatory laws. So that is why we are without protections right now.
We saw the president there talk about this issue of not being able to give water to those in line. To those of us who aren't in America, this seems a very unusual thing. Can you explain it, please?
Yes, of course. Well, the reason why that seems like a minor thing, it's a large thing because we have less and less polling places available for people of color. So you're waiting in long lines, 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours. Can you imagine standing in line for 12 hours without having a drop of water?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Why are those queues so long?
Because Republicans can close down voting places. So for every, in some white areas, there might be 20 polling places for voters. In some Black areas, there might only be one or two. And because of that, you're going to have longer lines in Black areas and Native areas. This is done on purpose. So what they're doing is chipping away at our access to vote.
How do activists challenge it in the courts? Do they go to the Supreme Court?
So right now, I want to say that there are some solutions to this. Right now, we have two bills that are in the Senate: For the People Act, S1, and the John Lewis Advancement Act. If we could get those two laws passed, this would help us at the federal level to have oversight. We also need to confirm Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, who are voting rights lawyers, and they would be going into the DOJ to help also look at these voter suppression laws. And finally, we need to change the culture around it. Like, I want to thank you for doing this story about voter suppression. A lot of the media thinks sometimes that there's two valid sides to the story about voter suppression. There is not. You either want all enfranchised voters to be able to vote without restrictions, or you want to stop them. There are not two valid sides to this.